To understand the inner workings of the Microsoft Identity Manager 2016 Synchronization Engine, let's start off with the following. We have an HR database, we have Active Directory, and we have RACF, a IBM security system on the mainframe. And if we have data in HR, for example, we have Hill A. Rios, employee ID 120, Vice President of HR, and we need to who's a new hire, we need to create an Active Directory account for Hilarious and a RACF account for Hilarious. How do we do that? Well, with the MIM sync engine in the middle. And the MIM sync engine is represented by that donut you see in the middle, and there are several parts to it. The outer part is the connector space, a staging area. In this case, there's a staging area for every system we're going to talk to. And then we have in the middle of the donut, the Metaverse. The Metaverse is the composite view of the data that we get from all the different sources. So what will happen is we will import the data for Hill A. Rios into the connector space, and then we will synchronize that into the Metaverse. And then that synchronization not only takes it into the Metaverse, but it takes pending exports into the connector space for each of the other systems. So when we import Hilarious for the first time, it will provision an object into the Active Directory connector space. It will provision an object into the RACF connector space. And then when we do an export, that's when it will go and talk to the real system. That's when it will go and talk to Active Directory and actually create the account. And that's when we do an export to RACF, that's when it will go and create the RACF account. On subsequent updates to Hilarious, let's say Hilarious decides to change her preferred name to be Hillary instead of Hilarious, and then that update would flow from HR into the HR connector space, and then on the synchronization it would flow into the Metaverse, and it would flow out to Active Directory, and if there's an attribute flow for it, it would flow to the RACF connector space. And then on the export to AD, we update, and Hill becomes Hillary, and then on the update to RACF, Hill becomes Hillary. So you can see how the data can flow and how the sync engine is it's the staging area plus this composite view of the world. This is what we call a meta directory, because it's a directory of directories and it stores a copy of the data. Inside the connector space, we store a subset of the data from HR. In the AD connector space, we're storing a subset of the data from Active Directory, and the same in the RACF connector space. And those things we call holograms. Don't worry, don't think of the sci-fi 3D image thing. Hologram is just a data storage term, and that's just the term that was chosen. So but it does have some significance in that it's not the real object. Inside the connector space, it's not the actual object we're dealing with. We're dealing with a hologram of the object. And the things we do can have an impact on the real object, but don't have an impact right away. It's not until we do an export. And so on this diagram, you can see we're never exporting to HR, so there's nothing that we would do that would modify HR. But there are some implementations where we do send data back to HR through various means. Since that was clearly one of the more superior technical how-to videos you've ever seen in your life, I highly recommend you check out our latest video, our playlist, and subscribe.